You're listening to The Health of Business, where we talk openly and honestly about what it takes to run a healthcare clinic business in BC and Canada today. I'm Danielle Boyd, and I'm glad you're here. Dr. Ashley Burton, welcome to The Health of Business. I know we have a super juicy podcast episode to record today, so I can't wait to dive in. But first of all, welcome. I hope you had a lovely holiday season.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having us. The holidays were nice and relaxing, and I hope you had a wonderful holiday and start to your new year as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be a great year. Looking forward to it. Absolutely. So before we dive into the juiciness of what we're going to discuss today, I'd love just a bit of a background. Who is Ashley? What does she do? And yeah, what's kind of been the journey that's led you to where you are today?
Okay. So first and foremost, I am a chiropractor. I think if we go way back to the very first training, I come from a fitness background. So I started personal training in university and did that throughout university and chiropractic college. Always loved body movement, health, nutrition, physical fitness and well-being, and chiropractic seemed to be a profession where I can encompass all of it and then share it and package it to my patients and clients in a way that felt really good to me. So I'm a chiropractor. I graduated from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. That's my that's next. From the Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College in Toronto in 2019. I moved from Ontario to Vancouver Island, BC shortly after that graduation and started working full time. And then I did a nutrition program part time with the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And I am just a forever learner. So my most recent class that I finished was the Fertility Awareness Mastery Mentorship Program for practitioners like nutritionists, chiropractors, and it basically equips practitioners with the knowledge to help clients with fertility naturally, helping them track their cycle with cycle awareness strategies and nutrition. And so that's kind of my jam at the moment. I still personal train people through chiropractic and group fitness, and my meat and potatoes is body work right now. So that kind of leads into what we're going to talk about a little bit because the reason I'm on this podcast is because I've learned so much through my first 3 or 4 years of practice because it involved quite a stressful um, time spent in the legal system and disputing contracts and around lots of lawyers and judges.
Sounds riveting.
It was a really good time.
Amazing. Well, I'm so grateful that you're here and, open to sharing this experience because I think it's something that's so important to dive into. And, as someone who is really, I myself am on a mission to spread business education and, just help empower other practitioners with more business education. This is such an important story. So I'm very, very grateful that you're here and ready to share it. So I think let's dive right into it. I know. So Ashley, you had a contract scenario that wasn't so great. So yeah, I think for everyone who is listening or has been listening, everyone knows that I'm really passionate about making sure everyone is aware of what to look for in contracts, the red flags, the green flags, etc. And I think this episode will be exactly that. We're going to discuss all facets of your specific contract and then moving forward, what to look for in a healthy contract for a contractor or an employee within a clinical setting. So yeah, let's dive right into it. I'm ready. If you're ready, let's hear your story.
I'm ready. I want to just preface by saying that looking back at it now, having hindsight vision, I'm glad that this happened.
Mm.
Okay. As stressful as it was, there was this was over the span of 3.5 years. And I would not be the person I am today had I not gone through this and walked through this and learned through this. So I call this the degree that I don't have up on my wall, the degree that I earned with sweat, tears, and late nights. And lots of stress because I learned lots of invaluable life lessons through this experience. So that's what we'll lead with.
I love it.
Okay.
Sometimes the hardest things we go through, we're
Um,
grateful in the end for. So
yes,
yes, I can
yes. So
resonate with
it
that.
taught me a lot about
Absolutely.
myself, and it actually gave me a lot more awareness and confidence approaching contracts and approaching
Mm,
business. So I guess I'll start with, this was the very first contract that I had ever signed. And I think if I go back deep down, I had a little bit of a body nudge not to sign this contract.
mhm.
Okay. I'm a very visceral person. I usually know yes or no in my body first, and then my brain tries to rationalize and overthink things. And so, um, at the time of signing this contract, I had been presented with probably 6 or 7 other contracts. So it was a situation where I was moving out west from being out east with a previous boyfriend, and we had set up a week of just coming and exploring Vancouver and Vancouver Island. And I had about 7 or 8 interviews set up. Most of them were on the mainland, and then I had one on Vancouver Island. So I had a chance to look at many different contracts. And, in chiropractic college, they give you a little bit of advice as to what to look for when signing a contract. And if you run into trouble, how to leverage a contract. Oh, that sounds bad. But we had one professor. He's like, if you sign a shitty contract and they're not letting you out, then just sit there and they're going to let you go if you're not making them money.
Yeah,
Okay. Very bad
got
advice.
it.
But at the end of the
Hey,
day,
fair enough.
what I took from that message was leverage the clauses in the contract that work in your favor, because a contract is an agreement between two parties, and it is meant to protect both parties, and it's meant to be balanced and fair.
Mhm.
There exist contracts that are not balanced and fair, and unfortunately that is the one that I signed. And so, just for comparison, I have my binder in front of me, and I had sample contracts from other clinics that had offered me jobs. And those contracts, the length of the contract was 5 or 3 pages, and the contract I signed was 8 pages.
Okay.
And so, with the 8 pages comes a lot of jargon, comes a lot of things that might be misunderstood, and a lot of things that can be that can work against each other as well. So,
Mm,
let's just say I signed this contract, and before signing the contract, there was a lot of exchange about the terms of the agreement and what certain sections of the contract meant. And
mm,
that's a very important part to really pay attention to and to keep if you need to. So always keep your negotiation notes.
mm.
Because they came in handy here, and we'll dive into like why specifically. Um, but all of the notes I kept about, what does this mean? What are my hours? Should we include hours in the contract? Um, can I have a certain time off with not needing to find a locum because I'm from Ontario? All this stuff. And so we were discussing that. And then I had signed the contract, and everything was good and dandy until COVID. And COVID was a event that no one could have predicted. And even if we could have, you cannot predict the acts of others, especially in a state of stress.
Mhm.
So I had been working for this company, and I really enjoyed it. We were amicable, we were friendly, and everything was going good until COVID. And what happened during COVID in BC, chiropractors were recommended to stop practicing unless they had essential emergency cases. And at that point, I started practicing in September of 2019, and this was March 2020. So I'd only been in practice for a couple of months, really.
Yeah.
So my schedule was not full. And as a new chiropractic student, an emergency case in chiropractic is you go to the hospital,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Physio too.
So I had no emergency clients. And so I was not actually working for 2 months. And there was some communication with the clinic owners, because I was brand new, and they said, "Oh, we're going to be collecting this base rent. And if you were a practitioner, you usually sign a contract where there is a split, where the owner of the clinic receives a certain percentage and you receive a percentage per client visit." And
Mhm.
that is the construct of the contract we were working with. But in the contract, there existed a clause that said, if the practitioner was going to be away for more than 10 consecutive business days, that they would either need to find a locum or pay their minimum base rent for the month. And in our negotiations, that specific clause, I had negotiated to 10 consecutive business days to be able to fly to Ontario for 2 weeks for holidays. So that was
Mhm.
strictly for vacation time. And so what happened during COVID was, you and I talked about this a little bit too. The pay structure of the clinic was kind of backwards,
Mhm.
and the clinic was receiving the monies and then they were paying their contractors,
Mhm.
which you said that was not really correct. Is that right?
Well, and because they were not chiropractors as well, right?
They were
So,
not chiropractors. So they owned the
yeah.
clinic, but they were massage therapists and then strength and conditioning coaches.
Yeah. So technically in BC, the corporate structure, and many clinic owners don't know this, and this is actually a podcast episode I'm going to record. It's the solo episode I'm going to record
Hmm.
after this. But yeah, if you are a contractor and the clinic is billing on behalf of you, the only way they can actually accept the money is if they are also a chiropractor. They have to be the same profession as you. So an RMT collecting money on behalf of a chiropractor is actually not the correct corporate structure. They really actually should have probably just been collecting rent from you right from the beginning. But that never happens in BC. No one's even aware of this. To be honest, I wasn't even aware of this until recently. It's a I guess a college thing. So the
Hmm.
CRA doesn't actually really enforce it. It's the colleges that enforce it, and the colleges just like never enforce it. So everyone does it that way, but in fact, it's not correct. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because I had reached out to the college. I had also reached out to the Canadian Chiropractic Protective Association, the
Mm,
CPPA, about this, but they were in no position to help because it was not a claim against malpractice.
uh,
So
it's
they were like,
business.
this is
Yeah.
you. So they offered
Wow.
no help on that. So, anyways, that pay structure was wrong. And of course, none of the judges that we
Nope.
went through knew. None of the lawyer representatives I had knew. I had 3 lawyers. I went to 3. And the last one was actually an employment and contract lawyer, but I think chiropractic and the medical colleges are very niche, so she wouldn't have known this. But
Yeah.
what happened during COVID was they said, "Don't worry about your base rent. You're new. We're not gonna collect your base rent."
Wow. Which you would have thought at the time was a kind thing to
Yeah,
do,
thank you
and you're
so
like,
much.
"Wow," like, you
Yep.
recognize that we negotiated this just for vacation, so thank you. Great.
Yes. And then I receive a piece of mail to my home residence, and it is April 1st, 2020, and it's an invoice that I have paid for base rent, which meant that they had taken the money that was supposed to come to me as a paycheck and then paid their rent.
So, when they spoke to you about, "Oh, don't worry about it," did they actually mean, "Don't worry about it because we're going to take the money out of what we have collected on your behalf?" Or they clearly didn't make that obvious to you or
They
clear?
didn't make that distinction during the Facebook chats that we had or the phone calls, but in court, what they told the judge was that we told you that we wouldn't take the full, whatever, 2,100 base rent.
Hmm.
And my argument to that in court was, well, because I had the invoice with me, I was like, well, did you not just take the whole paycheck? And the invoice is not for 2,100; it's for my whole paycheck.
And was the
My
paycheck
paycheck was
more
like
or less?
13 something because it was like the
Okay.
last 2 weeks of March, which was like the shutdown.
Right.
But the invoice was not for 2,100. The invoice was for the exact amount of my paycheck.
So they just didn't pay you what
They
you
just did
had.
not pay me. They paid themselves. And so that was the initiator of everything because I stood up for myself despite being told by chiropractors who also worked there, who were senior to me, to kind of just pay it and back off because I had known a little bit about this, but apparently the clinic owners had been very litigious before, and I was the third person that they were coming after.
Oh my gosh.
So I wrote them a letter saying, "Hey, I don't think this is okay. If this is how it's going to go, I really would like to leave."
Yeah.
And then there was a lot of resistance met with that because they're like, "I'm sorry, honey." They basically said, "You signed a contract as per the agreement. There's a couple ways we can terminate this, and you asking for out is not one of those ways." So, mistake number one that I made was signing a contract where the exit for me was going to be hard. So, I will
Got
read
it.
you some of the termination clauses that were available to me.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
And so when signing this contract, I thought that this first clause underneath the termination section was going to be enough to save me if anything happened. So this agreement may be terminated at any time by written agreement of both parties. Okay. So the
Got it.
agreement, so they did not agree to let me go
Wow.
because I was going to be paying a minimum base rent of $2,100 a month while they were closed
Yeah,
for COVID based off of how they cherry picked clauses in their contract,
100%. Yeah, why would
right?
they
So,
let
of
you
course, they did
go?
not agree to let me go. So,
Okay.
ways I could get out was either we had to agree to
Okay.
me being let go, the proprietor could terminate me at any time with 90 days notice,
Okay.
or they could terminate me if I breached the contract, and the contract would be terminated if they breached the contract. Now, according to me, I feel as though they breached the contract by not paying me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So at this point, I got into contact with a lawyer and, you know, he understood that I signed this as a contractor. In fact, right beside my name where I signed, I actually wrote independent contractor. And I don't know why
Okay.
I did that at the time, but I signed Ashley, my maiden name, Winsakabi, independent contractor.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 lawyers did not take me seriously because they're like, "This won't stand in court
Oh my
because
god.
you're a contractor. You can do
Yeah.
whatever you want with your hours, right? They can't
Yeah.
tell you how to practice, etcetera." Um,
Wow.
so that was basically the ways I can get out. So my advice to anyone who's signing a contract, make sure you can get out.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
my
my
requirements
understanding of
now
an
are
independent. Sorry,
30
go ahead.
days or 60 days or I don't even care,
Yeah.
90 days notice, but make sure you can get out with notice and not
Yeah.
agree because that one word in this contract really screwed me over.
Wow. Well, and my understanding was that as an independent contractor, you could you could walk away at any time no matter what. Like, you should be able to just leave. Like, there is no grounds to, like, you can terminate a contract however, whenever, as long as it's, like, with due diligence to your patients.
Exactly. Exactly. So not the case with this contract. Okay.
Wow.
So at that point, um, COVID happens. I think I was off work for like 3 months. I had no emergency
Yeah.
patients. And the whole time they're saying, "We will open the clinic if you have emergency patients. We will do it." Right. And so the minute that the CCBC said we can go back to practice, I emailed her. I'm like, "Hey, I'm ready to go." She's like, "Well, I'm not ready." I'm like, "Well, there's a breach in the contract again because you're not giving me the space that
Yes.
you signed and gave me to practice."
Okay. Okay.
So I had to
Yes.
wait for her to be ready to see clients.
That what?
Yeah. So I had that in an email. And again, the judge, they were like, eh.
What?
So yeah, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but you know, when you bring things into the legal system, especially small claims court, your outcome is not always predictable
Yeah, sounds
because it
like
really
it.
depends on other people's opinions. And when we brought this case to our first judge, I really think that she understood what was going on, but it was COVID and she fell sick and then she went on leave. So the second time we brought our evidence to court, we had a different judge. And that judge didn't want to hear their side of the story anymore. She only decided to hear mine and the recordings and the notes from the previous first half of our court session.
Okay.
And the second judge got caught up in the invoices.
Mm,
She got caught up in the invoices. So she wasn't actually focusing on the contract. She
right.
was focusing on where's the money
Right. And the
because
invoices that
the
you
pay structure was
subsequently didn't
kind of
pay.
weird.
Yeah. Okay.
For example, like they were receiving all of the income into the clinic and then paying us, except for MSP. So I would receive MSP personally. So
Oh.
in their books, there was a mismatch between income to the clinic And then where is this amount for MSP? So the judge went on this little math rampage trying to figure out where that, I don't know how much MSP money was missing, maybe like a couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
And it looked like they were hiding money, but it was just MSP payments that had come to me.
Ah, okay.
But
But she
again,
just didn't
that's
understand
confusing,
that. Yeah.
right? So, um, basically at the time where I said I wanted to get out and we started hiring lawyers and stuff, the first lawyer I hired, he didn't really take things seriously because he's like, well, this is nonsense. So our very first court settlement, um, we show up and we're there in person, and the the claimant who so the party who made the claim, the clinic owner, was like, there might be a conflict of interest here because that lawyer helped us buy our house. So we had to shut down the settlement conference there, and I had to go find a
Oh,
new lawyer.
oh my God.
So he referred me to a different lawyer, um, who was really helpful, really organized, really great. We did a couple settlement conferences, and then he decided to retire. So
Oh
I had
my
to find my
gosh.
third lawyer, and I
Okay.
remember it was like right before the long weekend of going away, and I wouldn't have found her had my husband not stabbed himself in the abdomen and had to go to the hospital. Okay, it's a
What?
weird story, but we were home that long weekend because he had to yeah, we couldn't go camping because he had an abdominal wound. So
Oh my
he was in the
goodness.
hospital all day, and I was just calling lawyers, and I found my employment and contract lawyer that day, and I
Wow.
went camping. I was like way less stressed. And so she was very more prepared. She was a little bit more aggressive, which
Okay.
made me feel comfortable. But in court, it made us look like more of a threat because the
Oh.
claimant, the clinic owners, were representing themselves.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So in the eyes of the judge, with how aggressive and to the point my lawyer was, sh-
Right.
she was a little bit more lenient to the clinic owners that
The
way.
self-representatives.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
anyways, so back to kind of the timeline. COVID happens. I go back after COVID, and with COVID, we kind of renegotiated hours because it was going to be a soft comeback. So my
Yeah.
hours were a bit less as we came back from COVID. And to me, those were my new working hours because I had decided those as an independent contractor.
Exactly. This
And
is wild to me that you even have to negotiate that as a contractor.
yeah, so like I have a piece of paper, and like we wrote down my post COVID hours, and um, that's what I was going to go back with for a long time because I didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And she said, well, no, you have to work full time. You have to go back to your original hours. And at this
No.
point, the contract is like my golden Bible. Right. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but I asked you in the negotiations before signing this contract if you wanted to include my hours in the contract, and you did not include my hours in the contract.
Way to go. Yeah.
Right. So, um, she didn't include the hours in the contract. And she was saying that even though we didn't do that, they still were part of the contract. But there's clause 11 of my contract, and it reads the entire agreement. And it says, this agreement constitutes the entire agreement between parties pertaining to the subject matter hereof. There are no oral warranties, representations, or other agreements between parties in connection with the subject matter hereof, except as specifically set forth or referred to in this agreement.
So nothing else is eligible, only what's in.
So that's what that clause means, that everything other than what is in this contract is null and void. But they brought so much more evidence that wasn't a part of this contract to present, like my hours that we agreed on before starting, my COVID hours, and none of that is actually in here. Okay. And so there is another clause in here, and it's all about amendments, right? So there's a section 6, amendment to the agreement. So this agreement may be altered or amended at any time by mutual consent in writing of the chiropractor and the proprietor. But we never added anything.
Right. Right.
Um, and then the only thing attached was Schedule A. Okay. And so below the entire agreement clause, there's a clause that reads schedules, and it says schedules and other documents attached to or referred in the agreement are an integral part of this agreement. But that's right underneath the entire contract clause. So it's
Yeah.
kind of contradictory.
Yeah. It's not in the contract, it's additional.
Yes, but regardless, you would have to amend it in as add it as Schedule A, which we had done.
Okay.
All right. So I have it in here, Schedule A. And I'm glad I did this because this came in handy when they were saying, well, if you're not going to work full time, we're going to put someone else in your room.
Oh.
And when I signed on this clinic, it was my responsibility to bring in my own chiropractic table. And
Oh.
as a way out, because I just wanted out, I really leveraged what this Schedule A said because I'm like, I just want out. I'm just trying to give them a hard time because they're sending me a bunch of invoices that I don't want to pay, that I don't
Mhm.
think I need to pay. So Schedule A includes equipment, supplies, and administrative services, right? That's what I'm
Mhm.
giving them the 35% of my billings
Yeah.
for. So equipment is as per time of the initial agreement, a desk for my room, one patient chair for my room, one treatment room for exclusive use to me
Yes.
during proprietor's operating hours.
Okay.
So during the whole time they're open, that room is mine
Yes.
only, and I'm not sharing,
Yes.
right?
They
So
put exclusive in there.
that's the language they chose to put in their contract.
Yeah.
So, and
So
Schedule
putting
A doesn't
someone
have
else
my
in there would have been
hours.
a breach.
It would have been breach if they put someone in my room. But again, this does not have my hours at all in the contract. So
No.
what I was doing was I was trying to leave. So I was giving them 90 days notice. Every 90 days, I gave them written notice that I was reducing my hours more and more.
Mhm.
And they couldn't do that. And as long as I didn't miss 10 consecutive business days, they couldn't come back to me either.
Right.
Okay. But so one day I got to work and on my desk is another invoice. And basically what they had started doing is they took their base rent, so that $2,100, and they took the split that they got, so the 35% of the patients that I saw. And because I was working less than full time, they were subtracting the two. So let's say my base rent was 2,100 and I only made $1,000. They then invoiced me $1,100 to make up for the difference, even though I was still working and not missing 10 consecutive business days. And so they were double dipping because of the way their contract was written.
Oh my god. Oh my
So
god.
at this point, my lawyer is like, just keep working, just keep doing your thing, keep treating your patients, keep being professional. And every 90 days, give them notice that you're going to reduce your schedule. And every 90 days that you do that, also mention that you would like to terminate the agreement and you need their permission
Written.
and
Yeah.
them to also agree amicably to letting you go. Um,
Oh my god.
and right before Christmas, so I think it was December 2020. Literally like 2 days before Christmas break, she serves me papers that we're going to court. So they're going to sue me for, I think it was like $25,000 of damages. And of course, I have to put a counterclaim in a certain period of time, which
Yeah.
I do that. And I'm countersuing for $1,100, the paycheck that they took from me back
The
during
first one.
COVID, where they took my pay to pay their rent. So it looks kind
Okay.
of funny,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So I countersue, and then I keep going. I work there till they terminate me, actually.
Wow.
So what was interesting about that was they terminated me February 22nd, 2021.
Okay.
And it was interesting the way they chose to terminate me because the whole time that they were saying that I was in breach of my contract because I wasn't working the hours that I promised that I would work, that I wasn't, being faithful to the contract. And let me just read you. Hold on, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So we talked about the termination agreement, right?
Yeah.
So they chose to terminate me using only 90 days notice,
Okay.
whereas they could have terminated me right away because
Yeah.
they kept saying I was in breach of a contract.
Oh,
but
because
they wanted
that
90 more
clause
days
got
of
it.
money collection,
Obviously. Yeah.
plus the difference between base rent and the income from clients. So
They
with
were
that
milking this
termination, they
thing.
also
Holy.
increased their claim against me to 35 grand. And even after they served me papers, so the interesting thing here is I kept working there
Okay. Wow.
even
I don't know
after
how you
they
did that.
served me papers that they were going to sue me.
Wow. Wow. I like that must have
Okay,
been an
looking back, I realized I was
emotional.
really stressed. I was riddled with anxiety. I had heart
Yeah.
palpitations. I was going to work and hating my life. Okay.
Literally.
But I did it because I had patients to take care of. And
Mm.
I really wanted to prove that if we had to go to court, that I was just following the terms of the agreement. And I didn't think I was in the
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Good for you. Okay.
So that's kind of how that went. So they terminated me using 90 days and not right away because I was in breach,
Wow.
even though they were saying that I was in breach the whole time. Um, and once they terminated me, obviously I was less stressed, but we still had court to deal with. And I think it lasted maybe like a year after that. We finally
Wow.
went to court. Again, that was in two pieces because we had two separate judges, excuse me. And
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
outcome of all of this was at the end, the judge again got lost in the numbers of the invoices. So she was like
Right.
super focused on the math and not really on the contract. And so they were suing me for 35 grand. I was countersuing for $1,100. And um, I forget the exact breakdown of how the judge deciphered this number, but she did a lot of like subtractions, adding this and because of this and all these invoices. She said, Dr. Ashley Winsakabi, you are to pay them $7,000.
Okay.
And she said something about me being in breach of one part of the contract, and they were in breach of maybe a couple places in the contract.
Right.
And at this point, I was like, done, done.
Yeah.
Because I had offered them $10,000 in a settlement conference for this all to go away,
Oh.
and they
Okay.
refused to take it. So I was like, you know what, 7 grand, dirty money, here you go.
Yeah.
And um, obviously, I paid more than 7 grand because I had to pay all my legal fees. Right.
Totally.
So
Totally.
I did not keep tally of how much I paid, but it was a really good lesson.
Yeah.
And that was my tuition of life.
100%. You got your
Yeah.
own JD.
So um, I have never been more proud of myself than the day where I had to stand and talk to the judge and present my evidence.
Yeah. Okay, what was that like? I wanna hear more about that. Like, how did it feel? What
Um,
did you
well, it was
share?
emotional because I had to relive a lot of things,
Of
right? So,
course,
like, did
yeah.
I cry on the stand? Yeah, for sure, I did. My lawyer was very good at leading me through my evidence. Um, I was shaking like a leaf
Mhm.
the whole time,
Of course.
um, and like super stressed. But I think I was able to find my voice, and I presented everything from my perspective. And you know, at the end of it, I was like, yes. I am so proud of myself for standing up for myself. The outcome didn't even matter after I stood up for myself
Yeah. Yeah.
because, unfortunately, like the type of people that I was up against, they just thought they were right. And like at
Yeah.
one point, they were kind of my friends. And I thought, how far do we go for
Yeah.
$7,000?
Seriously.
Right. And yeah, I don't know. Um,
Wild.
Looking
How
back, I'm like,
so
wow, this was a really big waste of time. But it did teach me some valuable lessons for
Of
sure.
course. Well, so how long has it been now? When did this actually settle?
Um, I feel like it settled in October of 2023.
Wow. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
not
and
kidding. Three
so
and a half
this all
years.
started March 2020. So yeah,
Wow.
3-ish years, and then I remember when I finally sent out my money order for the $7,000.
Yeah.
Was that? I guess it would have been like, yeah, I guess 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow. That's insane. And I mean, I think for me, like something that's really standing out here is This is a group of people or owners that have done this before. They're experienced, they're owners, and you were brand new out of school. Like, it almost seems like, I mean, I don't wanna make assumptions, but it seems predatory. Like, it seems like they were trying to trap you, and I mean, whether that's true or not, obviously, like, I'm making an assumption, but I it it's really, really wild to me that that's the kind of contract and, like, the kind of, as a clinic owner, you wanna make a welcoming, safe environment and have your staff happy to work there. Locking people into something like that just seems 100% predatory to me. Like, that contract language is predatory.
Yeah, and, like, I think I preface with saying, like, this I don't regret this experience, but will also say, like, had COVID not happened, I don't think this would have happened.
Right?
Like, I think that was an exceptional experience, and exceptional circumstances, and they had a clinic that was very expensive that they
Mhm.
probably couldn't pay for,
Yeah.
because the reason why they terminated me, they actually terminated all of the chiropractors, and the clinic went from being multidisciplinary to massage only and downsized significantly in space.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
I think there was a lot of factors at play, and I think it was just the perfect storm, and I was kind of, um I don't wanna say the initiator because I stood up for myself, but, like,
There was a catalyst there for sure.
there was a catalyst, and, I would never have anticipated it if
Yeah.
COVID hadn't happened.
Was that clause, the 10 consecutive days to find a locum or rent, did it specifically say in the contract that it was for, like, because you have your negotiation notes, like, now I understand, like, you had negotiated that to say specifically around
Yeah,
vacation,
so,
right? COVID was not
um,
a vacation.
it's funny because that statement comes up in different the contract is so long, um, but that specific wording comes up probably, um, like 4 times.
No way.
So, the first time it comes up in the terms of the agreement where it
Okay.
says, "Should the chiropractor be absent from work for more than 10 consecutive business days, they are responsible for hiring a locum to cover their patient load, or the chiropractor may choose to pay base rent per month."
Okay.
So that sounds like it's a choice.
Yeah.
So that's
May
the first
choose, yeah,
time it
okay.
comes up in the terms of the agreement, and then the second time it comes up in compensation.
Oh, okay.
So the compensation clause says, like, I'm to be paid a certain amount, they pay a certain amount. Um, it comes up, but this one's different. So this one says, if the chiropractor is unavailable to provide services in accordance to the terms of this agreement and does not provide a suitable locum, the chiropractor agrees to pay a rent of $21,000 a month.
Mhm.
So with this one, the wording's different.
Right.
Right? So
It
if the
says
chiropractor is
unavailable.
unavailable to provide services, well, I was available, but the CBCC, like the college put restrictions on what I was available to do.
Right.
Okay? So that's very
Yeah.
different than, you know, if you're away for more than 10 consecutive business days, you're responsible for hiring a locum. So that one, or if she's unavailable to provide services in accordance to the agreement. And then the last time it comes up is in a section called availability. And it says, if the chiropractor is to miss more than 10 consecutive business days, um, then the chiropractor must hire a locum.
Right. Yeah. And a locum wouldn't have been an option in that time,
No,
obviously,
how do you
because
find a
they
locum
would have
during
also.
COVID?
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
for patients who are not emergency
Well, and
clients.
I understand putting a or like a, a clause in a contract like that as an owner because, yeah, you have overhead you need to cover. But when they then contacted you outside of that and said, that's okay, don't worry about it, you're new, you're building your caseload, you know, and then to have a clause in there that says anything outside, like, why would they even bother saying that to you then if that's not going to be, held up, if the other clause in the contract says nothing outside of this contract exists? Like, it's all just so conflicting.
Yeah, so it sounds like very unprofessional
Yeah.
when we don't look at the contract, right? And then they're like, but we have this contract here and it's ironclad in case we need to use it. But it
Yeah.
provides them with many opportunities because
Yeah.
there's so many clauses that are almost the same that contradict each other. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, like, I really thought that the entire agreement clause should have been like the judge sees that and then like get out of here.
Yeah.
Right? Why are we
And
presenting evidence like and for the judge to understand contracts and see that clause, like
yeah.
there's no way you can misinterpret that clause. Both parties know what this clause means.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
for the judge to go off on invoice tangents,
Yeah, like, that
right? I'm
seems
like,
like a
we're here
completely
for one reason.
yeah, exactly, it seems like an unrelated yeah, I don't know, like, there's just so like, as a contractor, dictating your hours is, like they can't do that. That's, like, against CRA policies. Like, that to me is the thing that I'm probably the most hung up on, is the fact that they were trying to dictate ho like, and I understand, like, being away for 10 consecutive days, sure, whatever, but, like, when you were working
Mhm.
afterwards, like, during COVID, sure, it's probably a little bit gray, confusing, whatever, but once you came back from COVID, you were working. There was no 10 consecutive days that was happening. You were working during that time, and then to continue invoicing you for something that was, like, hours agreed upon, there were none agreed upon, and in the eyes of the CRA as a contractor, you're the one fully in charge of doing that. They don't get to override the CRA.
100%. But even in the contract negotiation emails before I signed the contract,
Yeah.
I asked, what are the hours of the other chiros? What are they billing per month roughly? Well, she said they each choose their own hours. Currently, so and so is working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? And he just closed his Thursdays off. The other doctor is working this and this and this. You and I can discuss your hours and such closer to the date, but you are ultimately choosing your own hours and days. In agreement that you're wanting 5 days per week, somewhat full time hours for the room rental. That's what her pre negotiation contract email
Yeah.
stated. Um,
Choosing your own hours. And I mean, yes, she did say something about, like, assuming it was full-time, but at the time you wanted full-time, I'm sure.
At the time, I wanted full time, and then COVID happened, and I was like, "Oh, I want out," but I couldn't get
Yeah.
out, so I want part time. I want to be here
Whoa.
as little as possible, please, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds just I mean, obviously COVID was completely unpredictable, and so sure, like, panic mode sets in, but for me as an owner, if someone wants out, I want them out. That sounds like this is just gonna be misery. Like, I would much rather be like, "Okay, great, go, off you go, I'll find someone else." Like, that sounds like a lot less of a headache than going through what you went through.
Yeah, and to like, I think it was very telltale when the other chiropractors were like, "Are you sure you want to go down the legal way with them? You don't want to just pay the base rent and then just right?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of started down this road, and then a couple of the I had some friends there who were massage therapists, and they were just patiently waiting for their contract to end because they could not get out.
Oh my goodness.
They were just counting down the days.
That's insane. Like, that's I mean, it sounds like they were very particular about how they did their contracts, and they were very aware of what they were doing, and, they were very much like I mean, yeah, like, I used the word predatory before, but they knew what they were doing. They were, wanting to be fully in control, which hiring contractors, like, that's oh, it's like it's so frustrating because that's not how it goes. Like, these people are independent businesses that are electing to work out of your space.
I know. Well, what fueled this conversation was you and I have a mutual friend
Mhm.
who was about to sign a contract. And I don't know what sparked her to mention this to me, but I told her, I think it was a clinic who I know of. And I know that they have also had some issues with contracts. And I told her, I said, if you want me to look at the contract, I'm happy to do that. And I told her a little bit about my case. And I said, make sure you can get out. And she went back. She's like, there was no way out.
No
They wanted me to
way.
sign the contract, but there was no way out.
Yeah. Like, no termination clauses, no
Yeah,
nothing on
no.
there. Whoa. So, yeah, I mean, what now? Like, obviously, it's been a couple years since this has ended, and I assume you've probably done lots of work on regulating your nervous system and
Yes.
all that aspect of it. What, like, so now what are you looking for when you see a contractor, if you're like talking to a friend like that, like what is a healthy termination clause and what is a healthy, like hours, quote unquote, clause? Like, what are those things that you're looking for when you're either looking for your own contracts or, supporting colleagues?
Yeah. So in the time after this, I've signed 2 contracts. I signed on actually during this whole scenario with another contract, sorry, with another clinic that I'm still working for.
Mm,
And her contract was 1 page.
right.
Very simple, plain English. You cannot misinterpret, no legal
Yeah.
jargon,
Yeah.
and 30 days notice.
Perfect.
Okay. And then the most recent contract I signed, a friend of mine owns a clinic and I was going to go and just work there until my home clinic was done. And I did that. So I worked for her for a couple months. And again, 90 days notice. So I look for making sure that you protect yourself first.
Yeah.
Okay. Protect yourself first, meaning always know your exits. And this is like, oh, even in buildings, know your exits, right? Like just know
Totally.
your surroundings, know your exits, know your contract inside out, know what it means. If there's something that sounds like it could be misinterpreted or misconstrued, make sure you change that language so that it's not possible, right? Hey,
Yes.
can we change this word? I don't like this word. I want it to say this because this is more specific and more structured and more to the point, right? Like you can ask for things. So I think I should have asked for more. I honestly didn't know much about contracts and business and law going into this. But if a contract is too long, I'm probably not going to sign it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
shorter, the sweeter. The last 2 contracts I've signed, I don't think they even had hours in them
Yeah.
because I'm a contractor,
Mhm.
right? So it was give notice to change your hours, give notice to leave, obviously breaches a contract. Most contracts will have like a non-compete clause for a certain kilometer radius around the clinic.
Yeah.
Um, the basic stuff. And I have a home clinic and I don't plan on signing any more contracts.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, and
Yeah.
you're right. I think like the big piece of this is that original contract that you signed wasn't in your favor at all. It was 100% in, the owner's favor. And yeah, I used the word predatory, but it was actually just like more a 100% protective on their end. It was like in their favor. It was not in the clinician's favor. And coming out of school, how do we know that? Like, how do we know? And the clause that said, like both parties agree amicably to exit the contract, I would assume that if I wanted to leave, the owners are going to be amicable and say, "Yeah, no problem, we get it. Here, we both sign off you go," versus them being like, "You want out? I'm not gonna be amicable on this," and, like, off we go,
Yeah.
down this, like, crappy
That
road
is
versus.
exactly what I assumed as well. I thought I'm a pretty agreeable person. If I want to leave, it's probably because I have a good reason,
Mhm.
right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
easy to assume that, yeah, there's going to be agreeability on both sides,
yeah.
and
I think
I
too,
would
I
have
was listening
probably
to a
been the
podcast
same.
recently and it was more so about being a business owner. And I think too, as a independent contractor, we have to realize we're our own business owners.
Yes. Yes.
And as business owners, we kind of have to plan for the worst case scenario. And when
Yeah.
you're signing a contract, you need to make sure that you're protected in the worst case scenario.
Mhm. Yeah. Exactly, and I assume I mean, like, I've had lawyers draft up contracts for me as an owner, but, like, as a clinician, I never had a lawyer look at my contracts. I never consulted lawyers on my contracts, and I did you have a lawyer look at it initially?
So I didn't have a lawyer look at it initially, but I had a couple of confidants look at it. So I had my financial advisor look at it,
Yeah,
and he only works with chiropractors.
okay.
And I had a chiropractic mentor look at it.
Mhm.
And again, they all assumed that the termination by agreement by both
Yeah.
parties was going to be sufficient because
Wow.
you can't predict actions of people when their business is at risk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So unfortunately their reaction was very negative.
Yeah.
um But the people that I
Self-protective.
had look at the contract were very certain that that clause would be enough because they, again, assume that if you don't want to be there, they probably don't want you there.
Exactly.
Um, but I mean, I went to work and I wasn't unpleasant, right?
Wow. I
Like,
can't believe that. Like, the fact that you continued to show up through that whole year, wow,
I don't know how
that
I did
must
it.
have been
I
I
really don't know
don't
how I did it. But
that would
I
have been
mean, like, I
brutal.
had friends there and they were like, this is crazy. And they were supporting me. And
Yeah.
the receptionist knew what was going on because she was doing all these invoices and leaving them on my desk. And her and I were still friendly despite everything, right? I'm like, this is not your fault.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
people are
What
put in
else
weird
did
positions,
you
right?
Exactly, right? And people need to protect their livelihood. Like, that's just it. People don't wanna pick sides in certain moments because it's, maybe going to be at the sacrifice of their
Mhm.
livelihood or their job or whatnot. But I'm curious, like, what did you learn from the lawyers? Like, what were the lawyers' perspectives on the contract for you? Like, did they look at some of the language and think, "Whoa, this is wild," or like, "Oh, actually, maybe they're in the right," like, I'm kinda curious what some of the takeaways from the lawyers were for you.
Yeah, so all 3 lawyers, um, in terms of the contract, they thought this won't stand. My hours
Wow.
weren't in there,
Wow. Yeah.
right? So even based like those are strong clauses. The entire agreement clause, the amendment clause, like in terms of law and contracts, like that's just the biggest part too was the breach, the breaches. Many of the lawyers thought, well, they've breached their contract because they did not pay you properly according to the compensation clause
Right.
because they
Right.
invoiced you that you paid rent with your paycheck.
And they never invoiced you ahead of time to give you the opportunity to pay that of your own
No,
accord.
well, I never received the money.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right? So,
Wow.
I mean, I feel as though the lawyers probably gave me a false sense of security
Interesting.
initially because the first lawyer was very like, I don't think he took it seriously.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Like, I really don't think he took it seriously. Even the second lawyer, I think he's like, this is not like, what are we doing? And then the third lawyer, she was like, well, clearly no one's listening. No one's seeing this.
Yeah.
Right. And to the lawyer, the third lawyer mentioned that, unfortunately in Canada, the judge needs to hear everything
Mhm.
and make a fair judgment. So even if
Right.
they think it's shit, they can't just be like, don't get out of here. Right. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
Canadian
they
law
have
is
to go
very
through the
different than what we
process.
see on TV.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, all
Interesting.
of the lawyers were like, "This is silly."
Well, and it's wild to me too, like, as a business owner, as an independent contractor, that it was so difficult to get out of. Like, it's a business agreement, and if it's not working for both business parties, like, did anyone ever say to you, "Just stop going in," like, "Just stop," or was that never an option because of the termination clauses, like, you had to keep going in order to avoid those invoices?
So, my third lawyer said that she been representing me when they first served me,
Mhm.
December of 2020,
Yeah.
she would have pulled me out right away.
Oh, interesting.
She's like, "I am amazed that you kept working there." She's like, "I would have pulled you out, but it's almost better that you kept working there."
Right.
Right? Because they're like, "What?" Because realistically, what would have happened if I had stopped working there after they served me, the invoices would have just been bigger. And it would have been
Right,
for the
they would have been
full
investing the full
2,100
2,100,
for every
yeah.
month from that day that I stopped or before that, because they were kinda doing that weird, subtraction
Yeah.
to the end of my term like, the end of my, contract.
Oh my goodness. So they were trying to charge you the difference of what your fee split was paying for. So say your fee split covered $1,000, they were trying to bill you the balance of the $1,100.
Yep. Even though I was working, like,
Yeah,
all
10
month.
there's no 10 consecutive days being
No.
missed. Interesting. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
but again, that's where they were cherry picking on the clauses because they
100%.
the the clause was that you would work, as long as you worked more than 10 you didn't miss 10 consecutive days, and it was just like fee split across the board. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, and like there there's just so many facets to this that I'm like, wow, it would have been so much cleaner at the beginning to just let you walk away when you got that first invoice. This would have been, like all that fighting for 7 grand in the end. Like, what a nightmare, what a mess, just what a
Yeah,
shitty
they had multiple
experience.
opportunities. We had so many settlement conferences where I was like, "Here, 10 grand, take it and let this just go."
Yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. I mean, like it just seems messy. Like all of it is just so messy. And I think ultimately, like zooming out, the lesson here for anyone listening is read your contracts, have a lawyer look over them initially when you're doing it. And I remember I spoke at UBC a few months ago and there was a lot of questions around contracts. And someone asked a question about a contract, and one of the answers was have a lawyer look at it. And as a new grad, that is expensive. That is scary. That is like, that's never going to happen to me. Like, you never hear horror stories like yours, right? Like, this is honestly one of the first contract negotiation, like, horror stories I've ever heard. And I've been a physio for well over 11 years now. Like, and I've been in this business like mindset for a while too. Like, this rarely happens. So everyone is just like, oh, it'll never happen to me. It'll never happen to me, even if I have this ironclad contract. And yet, clearly, it does happen where it gets messy and it gets litigated and it's like gross. And there's clauses that are, like being cherry picked and behaviors that become, you know, challenging. And so I think, yeah, like the big lesson here is know what to look for. What's a red flag? Pay the money and have a lawyer look at it initially.
Yeah. It would have saved me a lot of money. It was expensive, right? Like, it is expensive to have a lawyer look at your contract,
Yep.
especially as a fresh grad.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it worth it? Yes. Very much so now that I've gone through it. I met like I the last 2 contracts I signed, I did not have anyone look at it because I
Mm,
feel like
yeah.
I know enough now because of what I've gone through. Um, but I think this needs to circle back to what are they teaching us in school? Because
Yes.
we had business at CMCC twice in our
Okay.
3rd and 4th year, and it was the same business stuff, create your niche, who's your avatar, and I'm like, that is
Marketing.
besides the point, right?
It's
This
marketing
is the
stuff.
stuff that we need to be talking about in our business classes because it
Yes.
protects us, because the Canadian Chiropractic Protective Association is not going to protect you in the case of a contract.
So business claims are not something they even consider. It's obviously all just malpractice claims.
Yep, nope.
Wow. Well, and it's wild to me, like, you guys actually got more business than we did. We got nothing. We got absolutely nothing. Everything business related that we got was an after hours, like, opt-in type of
Mm.
presentation, and it was usually by someone. So I remember we had a financial advisor come in, and he did a free talk on financial planning, and, like, it was an amazing talk. I learned a ton, and obviously he had the motive of trying to, like, get in boots on the ground at that, like, student level. It was a marketing tool for him, which is brilliant. I would absolutely do the same thing. And so all the experience and the business and the financial, like, education we got was after hours opt-in from people who were marketing to us, which, I mean, like, great. It's a great, like, I learned a ton and he got a bunch of clients. It was a great, like, symbiotic relationship, but it was never like in the actual curriculum that we learned at school.
Mm.
None of it. And that's why I'm on such a bloody mission to share stories like yours and to teach about education, because I never want to see someone in a scenario like yours again, especially as a new grad, especially as someone who is like going out into the world excited to practice, looking forward to it, and then like end up in this horrible, like, sour taste in your mouth within the first couple of years of practicing.
Yeah, and, like, the other way to reconcile the not getting this business and contract and legal stuff in school is we need continuing education credits
Yes.
that are allotted to stuff like this if we choose to learn about it, because I think it's very invaluable. Like, it would be more valuable sometimes than, renewing your CPR. Come on.
Seriously, right? Like, there's so much value in learning about this. Like, and I have to say, like, the Physio Association has been amazing, especially over the last 2 years since Pacific Blue Cross started doing their audits. ICBC changed the language in their
Mm,
terms. WorkSafe is now renegotiating their contract with us preemptively. And it's because there's actually been a bit of pushback. Like, some people are like, we're now reading all these terms and conditions for the contracts with the insurers, and our association has been doing webinars with with lawyers and with people who are educated and educating on these topics. And I have to say, I'm really grateful that they're doing that now, but that would have been amazing 10 years ago, especially as a student. So they're definitely, like, I see a shift happening within the profession more at the association level. And the association is who actually brought myself and a few other speakers into the school a few months ago to teach on this, again, an after hours program.
mhm.
Um, so I see that happening at the association level, but the schools aren't doing anything. And I also understand the schools are responsible for teaching us the actual like curriculum and the anatomy and the techniques, but they're sending people into the wild, into a profession where most people take their first job as an independent contract. I would say, like, half the people that go out, especially in chiropractic, like, there are lots of physios now that are going, if you work in the public system, you're an employee. There are lots of clinics that are hiring people as employees now,
Mhm.
especially specialty niche type clinics are hiring people as employees just because they have such standardized processes. But if you go to a generic ortho clinic, you're probably going to be an IC. And I would say that's probably 50% of students who leave the program are leaving the program starting a business without any business or legal awareness.
Mhm.
And so I do think this is huge. And I mean, obviously you guys had a little bit of education, which is great. Physio has nothing. It's a pretty wild thing that so many students are being released into the wild in as business owners.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I mean, I'm so grateful that you've shared this and, like, all the learnings for you, all the things that you've taken away from it, because it's not often that these things happen, but when they do, it sounds dire. It sounds really, really, like, serious, scary, stressful, and unnecessarily ugly, right? Like, it just, this relationship fell apart for you with the clinic owners as well. Like, it just sounded really, really ugly and stressful. And I mean, obviously a learning opportunity. You learned a lot. You gained that street JD.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Holy.
think
Any
too, like,
other, like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
at the end of it, my lawyer was like, "Oh, well, I was thinking about it." She called me like a week after this all settled, after court, and she's like, "I was thinking about it, and I think we should take this to Supreme Court."
Whoa.
And her argument
Really?
was because they were in breach of their contract, they owed me damages,
Right. You
and that
paid
the judge
them
never even talked
damages
about
for
that.
your breaches, and wow.
Yeah, so, the judge at the end of the day said that I was in breach of, I forget what clause in here, um, but that they were in breach of XYZ, and
Right.
the lawyer was like, "Well, they owe you damages for however many breaches that they were up against."
Right. So you paid for your breaches, yet they never paid for their
Mhm.
breaches. Interesting. And it sounds like the
Mhm.
lawyer made it all about, like, invoices and, like, money exchange, like, yeah,
The
like, it was
judge
more
the
about,
judge
like,
got
a
lost in the numbers. The judge got lost in the
interesting.
numbers, wasn't focusing on the contract.
I
But
assume
I
you didn't
think,
wanna go to the Supreme Court, though, at that point, because it didn't.
well, no, you have to know yourself too, and I was done,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, I just wanna live my life. I wanna have energy to do things because it's so draining. It's always at the back of your mind. So,
Yeah.
once I decided that I wasn't going to go, my home business flourished, my nutrition,
Mm.
like consulting with clients flourished,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you gotta also know when to just put it away. And that goes for their
Yeah.
side as well.
Yeah. Do you have any regrets about how it went down, or, like, things you would have done differently in the litigation process? Regrets
Like
probably isn't the right
in
word,
court
but, like,
specifically, or just like the whole.
Yeah, maybe in the whole process, like anything knowing what you know now that you would have done differently. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking for anyone who may end up in a similar scenario, like something that you would have done differently, either maybe to protect your like well-being in the process or that would have like had a different legal outcome.
Um, I don't think I would've, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think,
good for
like,
you.
I held up the important parts that were integral for me, like going to work, even though like, even following the claim serving.
Mhm.
Once I knew they were gonna once I knew they were gonna,
Yeah.
try to sue me for it, I was like, "Well, okay, we're still going to work." So I'm really happy I
Wow.
navigated that. All my correspondences were professional. When things started getting intense and weird, I asked for everything to be written, emailed only, no more
Mhm.
phone calls, no more, text messages.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think, and it's gonna sound silly too because had I not signed this contract, I wouldn't have landed on Vancouver Island and I wouldn't be with my husband right now. So
Whoa,
at the
serendipitous
end of
right
the
there.
day, this got me where I am right now. We have a baby
Yeah.
on the way,
Oh,
and I wouldn't have any
congrats.
of that if I didn't sign this contract because all of my other opportunities were on Vancouver, like mainland.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh, you're pregnant. That's so exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Congrats.
Thanks.
That's and like that's just it. The universe works in mysterious ways. And yeah, for it to have brought you to the island, to build like what you're building now. And you're right, like it takes up so much capacity. And I have seen this so often with car accident cases,
Mhm.
right? Like you've probably treated lots of ICBC cases. And I've seen this time and time again, especially before the no fault when people were litigating. I would work with clients and patients and like, I'd see them for years and they'd be in litigation and litigation and litigation. And then finally in the 11th hour, they would settle their court cases and they would feel, significantly better after settling because it's just not in the
Yeah.
mind anymore. Like they would start sleeping again. And so their bodies would start healing. And it was amazing. Like how it's wild to me how much capacity, you know, litigation and legal cases take up. It's a lot.
Yeah, it does. And I think too for me, like the type of person I am, um, my way around it was like working out really hard, cold dips, and it affected my fertility 100%,
I believe it.
right? Like my cycles were all wacky and um obviously stress was like super prominent. I got shingles during all this and like
Wow. But that just
so
speaks to, like, the effect that stress has on the body. That's amazing.
yeah,
But, yeah, one of the
100%. But
big
I've noticed
takeaways
that
that
too with
you
clients and like once their ICBC settlement like their claim settles, you don't see them every week like you used to because they don't just
Yeah.
forget about you, but they're not carrying the weight
Yeah.
and the history of their car accident anymore. And
Yes.
yeah, so it's heavy. Um, maybe I would have done a little bit better job of taking care of my well-being, from that perspective, but at that time, I was doing what I could with the resources I had, so
Yeah.
I don't
And you
think I
were
would go back and change anything.
wow.
Um, no,
Wow, good for you. And I think a big takeaway too that you mentioned there was, like, get everything in writing. Get emails, like,
get everything in
everything is
writing,
in
and, like,
writing.
even if it's in text message, keep them. Like,
Screenshots.
I had to go back in Facebook messages and screenshot everything for creating the binders and creating evidence, and same thing with text messages, and it's
Wow.
all valid because he said, she said, and contract and entire agreement clauses. Keep
Wow.
everything, and, I had those even before this happened because you don't just go and delete conversations.
No, yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow.
just be organized, keep everything, prepare for the worst. That sounds negative, but as a business owner, if you're an
You
IC,
have
you
to.
need to prepare for the worst. We do that with insurance, right?
Yeah,
So maybe thinking about having a lawyer look at your contract as a form of insurance is more of the way to look at it because we all get disability, we all get critical illness because we need our hands to work. And we need our contracts to protect us if we want to live happily without stress.
exactly. Boom. That's like That's like I'm floored. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think
Thank you
this
so much for
is
having me.
like, oh my God, I've learned so much through this process. And I think, you sharing and being vulnerable and being open about this will help so many more people to, especially those specific clauses to like what to look for in them. And ultimately just like looking for a contract that is a level playing field that is fair for both parties and that is like easy to get out of. I think for me, that's the
Hmm.
biggest takeaway. I never would have thought it would have been hard to get out of a contractor contract.
No, it can be hard. And I think too, like, you're like, thank you for sharing this. And I was very, very vocal with a lot of my patients.
Mm,
Once I stopped working at that clinic, even patients there knew what was going on. Right. And everyone was
wow.
like, okay, we're here. We're professional. We're doing the thing. I still have patients that I co-treat
Wow.
with that clinic owner.
Wow.
Right. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like we're all professionals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
The
yeah,
world goes
I think a
on.
big support were my patients
Yeah,
because I was showing up every day for them.
exactly. And that's what kept you like getting up in the morning and walking in with a professional face every day.
Mhm.
Good for you. Wow. Oh my gosh, Ashley, thank you so much. And congrats, by the way. That's very
Thank you.
exciting. Yeah. Any last takeaways? How can people get a hold of you? Because I know you actually have your own podcast as well, unrelated to this,
It's very unrelated to this, yeah.
but yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about, yeah, what you're doing, how people can work with you, and yeah, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So, I have a website, www.drashleyburton.com, that has most of the links to my online booking. So, I'm on Vancouver Island. I work from home in Nanu's Bay, and I work through Vancouver Island Physiotherapy Clinic for the next 5 months before baby comes.
Yeah.
And we have locations in Ladysmith and Cedar.
Awesome.
I have an online community that is free for women. There's also some paid tiers. It's called Fern Rising, and it's all about women's health. So, my podcast is also called Fern Rising with Dr. Ashley Burton, and I talk about women's health, mostly hormones, preconception planning, healthy pregnancies, just health and wellness as a woman, balancing hormones. And I do a little bit of fertility consulting and nutrition consulting as well. But on Instagram, I am Fern underscore Dr. Ashley Burton. And you can find me just typing in Fern Rising as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. I so appreciate this. And I know a lot of people will have lots of takeaways and learnings from this. So much gratitude to you. And yeah, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a privilege. And I really do hope that people can learn from my experience. And if you have contract questions, I will send Danielle my email. You can email me. I am happy to look over a contract and tell you yes or no for a lawyer, okay?
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like you know what you're looking for. So I'm sure people will take you up on that. Thank you again so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
That's it for this episode of The Health of Business. If you're navigating any of these challenges in your own clinic, know that you're not alone. If you're interested in working together on any of these challenges in your business, head to danielleboyd.ca to learn more about my consulting offerings and to get in touch. Catch you next time on The Health of Business.